Hey there, this is Dr. Shivam. I hope all of you are doing great. In this session, we will discuss about mucormycosis because the recent AIIMS people have announced their date, that is the INI CET, and for this exam you should know the recent AIIMS guideline regarding this mucormycosis. So main aim is why to see this mucormycosis videos. There are a lot more videos in YouTube. You should see this video because the AIIMS have given guideline, and before giving this AIIMS exam you should be knowing these things, these bare minimum things about mucormycosis. So starting with the one important question that I have already discussed in my class is, what is black turbinate sign, right? So this can be your future MCQ question. What is black turbinate sign? So if you see this MRI of nose and paranasal sinus, you will observe a non-enhancing part in the left maxillary sinus and the turbinate. So this is your inferior turbinate, which is not enhancing. If you compare it with the opposite side, this is the right inferior turbinate, this is enhancing, but this side, the left side, is not enhancing. What does it mean? It means that this left inferior turbinate is not able to take the contrast, which means that this is the necrotic or the involved turbinate that you can see. So this is more than enough to diagnose you or to give you a hint of mucormycosis involvement in the paranasal sinus. So what is the concept? What is the basis of this black turbinate sign? So this black turbinate sign basically tells you that due to the necrosis that is present there, even the medicine that you are going to give for mucormycosis will not reach there, and that is why you need to remove this part and do the surgery, right? So if you see, mucormycosis is not a surgical disease, it is a medicinal disease, but we do surgery as our first step. Why? Because the medicine is not going to reach in these necrotic areas, and that is why the goal of the surgery is to remove the necrotic areas, decrease the disease burden, and then give amphotericin B for the other areas which are enhancing, so as to treat your patient, right? So you need to do the surgery to identify and remove the necrotic areas. How you will identify? By these MRI scans, contrast enhanced MRI scan. By doing the diagnostic nasal endoscopies, you can identify. Now let us see a case before moving to the AIIMS guideline. A 66-year-old man with diabetes, right? So there are some highlighted thing that you need to point while you read the question. Here is old age, one. Another is diabetes, presented to the emergency department. That means it's not a normal patient, with malaise, left eye proptosis, left facial numbness, right? So this is also a early sign, left facial numbness, weakness of approximately 2 weeks, a non-contrast CT of brain obtained at admission demonstrated soft tissue secretions within left maxillary sinus. That means there is some collection. In non-contrast, you won't be able to tell whether it is enhancing or non-enhancing. So it is just a collection in the sinuses with some infiltration of the orbital fat, inferior rectus muscle. Now if you think in a normal sinusitis case, the infection or the secretions just remain in the sinuses. They don't go to involve the extraocular muscles, the fat, and the orbital content. Here what we are seeing is, it is involving the orbital fat, the inferior rectus muscle. That means this should give you a hint that this is not something which is usual. This is something which is fatal and involving the orbital content also. The patient was placed on IV antibiotics. MRI of the brain was performed, which demonstrated maxillary sinus opacification, focal lack of enhancement of the nasal turbinate mucosa, and enhancement of the inferior rectus muscle. So the things to note for you is there is lack of enhancement of nasal turbinate mucosa. What again it tells is low signal intensity of the affected turbinate on T2 weighted images of the MRI, right? So this tells you that the contrast is not able to reach the turbinates, which is the early sign of the mucormycosis or the necrosis being done by the fatal fungus, right? And this enhancement of inferior rectus muscles tells you that there is involvement of the orbit also with the fungi. So if we consider 3 or 4 radiological signs that you should remember for mucormycosis, your one will be black turbinate sign. Second, for orbital involvement, which is very important to know so as to plan the management, is medial rectus muscle enhancement or thickening. So medial rectus muscle enhancement or thickening will serve as an early indicator of orbital involvement, right? Third is your optic nerve enhancement. So if the optic nerve is thickened or enhanced, this is going to tell you that there is optic nerve neuritis or optic nerve is involved. Fourth is cavernous sinus thrombosis. So you need to see that whether the cavernous sinus is also involved or not, right? Now coming to the management protocol that is given by the AIIMS Rishikesh Uttarakhand, the PDF you will get in my Telegram group. I'll post there. Do download it and review it after we finish this video, right? So one question that they can start is how you are going to manage this pandemic, this mucormycosis pandemic at your hospital or in AIIMS. If you are a team head there, what all you will do? There will be some 3 to 4 options, right? So 4 options. So you should know what you are going to do. So the first step is to form a multidisciplinary team that is going to consist of different department, people from different department. That means ENT, medicine, oral and maxillofacial surgery, ophthalmology, neurosurgery, pediatric surgery, microbiology, pharmacology, and PSM, right? And other department as per involvement. What these all people are going to do? These people are going to assess the situation from time to time, provide guidelines for prevention and treatment, manage the patients, and give public oriented messages from the learnings they are having with this epidemic and the treatment they are offering, the results they are getting, right? Very important is to have a separate ward OT or an extra OT to be arranged as per the clinical load. As the number of cases are on rise, you might require to have an extra OT so as to manage these cases. Why? Because the first step is to operate. Without this operate thing, your medicines are not going to work. So you need to first remove the disease, whatever you are able to, and then give the medicinal treatment. So multidisciplinary team is a very important step that will help you to prevent and early diagnose and early treat and better manage your mucormycosis, right? Now this mucormycosis not only does the rhinocerebral mucormycosis, it does different types of mucormycosis. So I'll show you. It not only causes this sinus mucormycosis, which is the rhino-oculocerebral mucormycosis, but it causes a variety of mucormycosis that you should know. So one is your rhino-orbitocerebral mucormycosis, another is your cutaneous and soft tissue mucormycosis, pulmonary mucormycosis, gastrointestinal mucormycosis, mucormycosis of bones and joints, disseminated mucormycosis. So the symptoms, signs, these you can read. I'll just tell you about the most important ones, that is the rhino-orbitocerebral mucormycosis, which is occurring nowadays and high on the incidence. So you must not neglect and must suspect any patient, any post-COVID patient with immunocompromised status or diabetic or on steroid for long duration for mucormycosis if he or she is having nasal stuffness, foul smell, epistaxis, nasal discharge, unilateral facial edema, facial numbness, diplopia, proptosis, pain, redness around the eye, loss of vision or decreased vision, restricted eye movement, palatal or palpebral fistula, blackish discoloration over bridge of the nose or palate, prolonged fever, headache, toothache, loosening of teeth, jaw involvement, altered mental status. So why jaw involvement? Because it is also involving hard palate, right? Loosening of teeth, altered mental status. Why? Because this might go into the brain also, right? So cerebral part, it can through the sinuses, through the orbit, it might reach into the brain also. And knowing little about mucormycosis, which I think everybody of you know, is it is a very aggressive angioinvasive fungal infection which is acquired primarily by the inhalation mode. How? By the inhalation of environmental sporangiospores, which are very small, 3 to 11 micron, right? In immunocompromised host, not in everybody, but in immunocompromised hosts, or direct entry during trauma, and then it causes infection. Now more important things are to know very basic detail about this mucormycosis, that which family it belongs to, right? So mucormycosis are basically the microorganism which belongs to, so this is whole family or the description about mucormycosis. The kingdom is fungi, division is Zygomycota, class is Mucormycetes, order is Mucorale, family is Mucoracea, and genus is Mucor. So there are 3 different organisms that you will get in this mucormycosis. Not only Mucor, but Rhizopus and Apsidia also. Right, so not only Mucor causes mucormycosis, Rhizopus and Apsidia also causes mucormycosis. And if you ask me which one is the most common among 3, so Rhizopus is the most common among these things. So these fungi are saprophytes of soil, manure and decaying vegetable, and that is why it is said to keep away the patient from these decaying and these materials, these vegetables, decaying materials, so that they don't get these fungi. Now I want to make you see how these look like and how you will differentiate it from other, how you will differentiate Mucor from Rhizopus and from Apsidia and Aspergillus. So if you see mucormycosis, we already told that the order is Mucorales, Rhizopus is the most common organism, others are Apsidia and Mucor. कैसे आइडेंटिफाई करेंगे कि ये आपका जो है ये म्यूकर ही है? सो फंगल फॉर्म्स ऑफ म्यूकरमाइकोसिस, जो इसके फंगस होते हैं, जो हाइफी होते हैं, दीज आर ब्रॉड एंड एसेप्टेट, दैट मीन्स नॉन सेप्टेड हाइफी, ब्रॉड नॉन सेप्टेड हाइफी. अनदर थिंग इज देयर इज ब्रांचिंग, राइट, बट दैट branching are irregular and they are wider than Aspergillus. That means the Aspergillus, if you see, these organisms have branching like if you see here in this picture around 45 degree, that is acute. So Aspergillus species are thinner, septate with regular branching, and they branch at acute angle. So Aspergillus is very different from this this Mucor. How? Aspergillus are thinner, septate, regular branching, and they branch as acute angle of 45 degree, while Mucor are broader, these are aseptate, have irregular branching, and they branch at 90 degree, right? So very contrasting features, and this is one of the histopathology for the Mucor to identify, right? So these organisms are wider than Aspergillus, branch irregularly, branching is greater than other organism, and usually approaches 90 degree. The special feature is angioinvasion is common, and they may elicit intravascular thrombosis, right? And thus it will cause marked inflammatory response. Now one more thing here only I want to tell you is about the culture. So how they will look in culture? They look in culture like this. So in SDA agar, they will look this white colony. In potato dextrose agar, again white. So many people are now saying it as black fungi. These mucormycosis are not black fungi. People are just naming it as black fungi, but these mucormycosis are really not black fungi, right? So don't get misguided by the media people and what everybody is telling you. Now coming to another important question, that is, what are the risk factors when you are going to suspect a case of in which patients, in what population? So just 10 points you have to know, and it is a very easy, very easy. Why very easy? Because a lot more people are talking about it. So if there is a case of severe COVID-19 being recently treated, that means less than 6 weeks, severe COVID-19 patient. Why severe? Because these severe patient must have got some steroid, they must be in immunocompromised state, so there is risk of them getting this mucormycosis. Uncontrolled diabetes mellitus, chronic granulomatous disease, HIV, AIDS, primary immunodeficiency states, right? Use of immunosuppression by steroid, any dose which is greater than 3 weeks or high dose greater than 1 week. So not like in many cases the steroids are given in low dose for short duration. So those are not at all for risk of mucormycosis. So there is general consensus that everybody who is getting steroid will get mucormycosis. This is not the case. Steroid use for greater than 3 weeks or a high dose for greater than 1 week predisposes a patient for mucormycosis. Prolonged neutropenia, very important. Trauma, burns, IV drug abuses, prolonged ICU stay, post-transplant or malignancy. Voriconazole therapy, very important. Voriconazole therapy is also a risk factor for mucormycosis. Desferroxamine and other iron overloading therapy. Why? Because this ferritin, mucormycosis fungus has a binding tendency for ferritin. Contaminated adhesive bandage, wooden tongue depressor, adjacent building construction, hospital linen, renal failure, diarrhea, malnutrition, low birth weight, infant, children and adults. Right? Now coming very fast to the diagnosis part. What all laboratory investigations you are going to do for such cases if they present to you? So for blood parameters you would see CBC, ESR, fasting blood sugar, postprandial, HbA1c for diabetes, LFT, KFT, viral markers for immunocompromised state. Diagnostic nasal endoscopy plays a very important and pivotal role to early identify. Now it is a general consensus that every severe COVID-19 patient or long stay patient or with steroid, they should get a diagnostic nasal endoscopy done at the discharge, right? And at every week for screening, every week for mucormycosis early detection. Why? Because it is very bad disease. How you are going to detect? Huge amount of crusting, blackish crusting, debris, scab, granulation, discolored mucosa, either darkened or pale, decreased bleeding, right? So that dead tissue is there bleeding. On probing also you are not getting any bleeding. Insensate mucosa, there is no sensation, no pain. That means that part has been involved with the fungus. Second very important thing is imaging, radiology and radiology. It gives you a route map of what you are going to do in future, how you are going to manage. So CECT of nose and paranasal sinus, this will give you an idea whether and to what extent the disease is present. So there is erosion and thinning of bone, enhancement of the muscles like masticatory muscle, mucosal thickening in the sinuses, and changes in the fat plate. CE-MRI is very important imaging where you can detect the eye involvement, where you can detect the optic nerve involvement, optic neuritis, intracranial involvement, cavernous sinus thrombosis, infratemporal involvement. So MRI is must to do. So if you ask me one investigation that you should do as a part of radiology, I will order CE-MRI of brain, orbit and face, because this is not only telling you the amount of disease that is there, but also telling you which all part the necrosis is present, so that you can remove them endoscopically or by the surgery, whatever you have decided. So we'll come to the management part कि कब क्या सर्जरी करेंगे फॉर म्यूकोरमाइकोसिस, किस स्टेज पे क्या स्टेप लेना है, राइट. सो वी विल कम टू दैट. नाउ coming to the microbiology part, that is the KOH staining and microscopy. So you can order a direct microscopy and histopathology with special strains like PAS. Typical finding we have already discussed, that is aseptate or non-septate, ribbon like hyphae and angioinvasion, 90-degree branching, irregular branching, wide fungus, right. So this chart is not very clear. I'll move to the other part for this. So basically what it is telling is sample collection and transport, right. So yeah, I'll just discard this. Wait. So very important is how you are going to collect the sample and in which material you are giving the sample. So it is very important that all the smear, all the staining should be collected in saline, right, to diagnose the presence of fungi. For culture, again, it is to be given in saline for diagnosing the type of fungi. For histopathology, it should be given in 10% formalin for seeing whether it is fungus, bony lesion or any malignancy. Now some important points from which you might get question is how you are going to give the sample. So sample should be collected aseptically in a sterile container, transported to the laboratory within 2 hours. You should not delay in transport. Another thing is avoid sending swabs. Avoid sending swabs if there is pus or some fluid collection or where you can see some necrotic tissue. Why I am saying avoid sending swabs in those cases? Because this will give you a false negative report. When there is some secretion, when there is some pus, the best sample is aspirate. Aspirate that fluid, aspirate that pus and send it for the fungal staining, culture and histopathology. That is the best. Don't take swab from the pus. Don't take swab from this collection, right, because this will give you a false negative report. Again, very important is then if you are taking with swab, you have to remember that your swab should not be dry swab, right. So never use a dry swab to collect a specimen. Why? Because if it is dry, the fungus and all will go into the cotton, and when the microbiologist will inoculate for the culture, the fungus might not grow. So what you have to do is you have to dip the swab in a normal saline and then take the swab. So this is very important. You might get in the option which of the following should not be done. So dry swab should not be used to collect the specimen. And another thing is regarding the from where you are going to collect the specimen. So depending upon the disease, what type of mucormycosis it is, you will collect the specimen. Now again, if we move to our slide, the PPT, right. So if it is ROCM means rhinocerebroorbital mucormycosis, then you will use scraping or exudate from the nares, heart palate if it is involved, sinus material biopsy from the extracted tooth sockets, endoscopic collection of the debrided tissue, right, and unacceptable specimen is nasal dry swab. So nasal dry swabs are not accepted. You have to give multiple specimens, one from exudate from the nose, from the nares, and that should not be dry, it should be wet. Heart palate lesion, sinus material biopsy from the extracted tooth sockets and all. If it is cutaneous, then you have to aspirate the collection from the sterile needle and syringe from the abscess, undrained abscess, right, And then if it is pulmonary, sputum or the bronchial brush washing. If it is gastrointestinal, then endoscopic biopsy of the lesion and biopsy of the lesion if it is gastrointestinal. Now coming to the treatment or the management part, very important thing. If rhinocerebroorbital mucormycosis is possible or proven, you will straightway move to the management. That means urgent surgical debridement. Why? Because this disease doesn't give you time. This is very fatal in progression. Urgent surgical debridement and strict glycemic control, followed with injection amphotericin B or liposomal amphotericin B or amphotericin B lipid complex, right? And continue treatment till resolution of initial indicative findings on imaging and clinically patients get better. Now the point to note here is note the dosage in your notebook. You might forget these are volatile, so you have to note there are different dosage for all these amphotericins B. Injection amphotericin B is 1 to 1.5 mg per kg per day. Liposomal is 5 to 10 mg per kg per day. If it is intracranial involvement is there, then the dose is 10 mg per kg per day. Lipid complex is 5 mg per kg per day. Now coming to the part is how you are going to give. What is the protocol, right? So as you all are managing, you are doing duty right now in COVID, they expect you that you should know how and when you are giving and what you all are doing while giving this. Before that, we'll see one second line drug is also there. The first line is amphotericin B. Second line drug, that means the step down. Once amphotericin B has been given, you cannot give it for long because treating this mucormycosis takes a long time. So you will step down to some oral form. So that is your posaconazole. So posaconazole is a broad spectrum azole which is present both as an injection and oral formulation. Dosages 200 mg 4 times per day, or some delayed release tablets are also there, that is 300 mg every 12 hours on the first day and then 300 mg once daily taken with food. So this should be taken with fatty meals because absorption is better. Another thing is syrup is also there. So although it is little costly, but as a step down, this posaconazole is used. Already we have discussed about the amphotericin B deoxycholate. Recommended dose, that is 1 to 1.5 mg per kg per day, and liposomal is 5 to 10. Amphotericin B lipid complex is 5 mg per kg per day. Now coming to duration, it should range between anywhere 14 to 21 days depending upon the severity till clinical resolution and radiological stabilization. After 14 days of therapy, shift or step down to posaconazole that we told, that is 200 mg 4 times per day. Now this is what I was saying ki before giving amphotericin B you should know some points how you are going. So you should always do a test dose. In test dose, what you are going to do, you are going to give one vial, that is 50 mg to be diluted in 12 ml of diluent and make a 0.25 ml of solution. Then you will mix it in 100 ml dextrose and give it for around 30 minutes. So injection liposomal amphotericin B 1 vial, which is 50 mg, is diluted in 12 ml of diluent to make a solution, and then 0.25 ml of that means 1 mg of the solution is mixed with 100 ml of dextrose and given in 30 minutes. Then you will observe for the reaction, observe for the fever. If everything is okay, you will move to the next step. Next step is prehydration. So before giving amphotericin B, you have to take care of the kidneys, right? So you will prehydrate the patient, 500 ml of NS over 30 minutes to reduce the risk of renal toxicity, hypokalemia. 500 ml of NS with 1 ampoule of KCl, that is 20 millimole. Very, very important, right? Therapeutic doses 5 to 10 ml, 5 to 10 milligram per kg. per day amphotericin B in 5 ml of D5 with 10 units of HIR over 3 hours. So this should be covered in a black sheet, so that because it is a sensitive, it is light sensitive drug. After the therapy, after this 5 to 10 milligram per kg per day amphotericin B dose, you have to again hydrate the patient. That means post hydration, and then post dose you have to check the renal profile. KFT with serum electrolyte after every dose of amphotericin B. Fill the amphotericin B monitoring chart. Very, very important, right? So what all it contains: serial number, name of the drug, date, starting time, ending time, dose given, cumulative dose, urea, creatinine, sodium, potassium, magnesium, pre-medication, complications, and potassium correction. So this is the monitoring chart. They can give you an MCQ where they will say ki what all you will monitor for giving amphotericin B. So after every dose you will see urea, creatinine, sodium, potassium, magnesium, and you will correct the potassium. In the similar way, there are other things for amphotericin B, deoxycholate and liposomal 1. So you can see it from the PDF that will be there in the Telegram group. I am not going into all of them, all of the details. One important thing you can notice in pediatric conversions that are patients that are less than 30 kg, dose is same but fluid dilution is 10 to 12 milligram, and the therapy for oral posaconazole, the dose is 18 to 24 milligram per kg per day in 3 to 4 divided doses, and IV dose is same. Right now, the surgical management, where the ENT surgeons comes into play, the ophthalmologist comes into play, right? So what you are going to do, you are going to do surgical debridement. But what kind of surgical debridement? Early surgical debridement, right? So early surgical debridement in all the patient is must and recommended. For eye, what you can do is you can give a transcutaneous retrobulbar amphotericin B, that is called TRAMP. So note this point, TRAMP. They might ask you in TRAMP what you give, how much you give. So transcutaneous retrobulbar, so they can give you an image where the doctor is giving transcutaneous retrobulbar amphotericin B, that is called TRAMP, 1 ml of 3.5 milligram per ml of amphotericin B, 1 milliliter of 3.5 milligram per ml, right? And if it is extensive involvement, then you have to do a very sad operation, that is orbital exenteration. Now, regarding the endoscopic part, when you are going to do surgery where you involve bones and all, so that is determined by the parts involved by this mucormycosis. So if only the nasal sinus involved without any bony erosion of the maxilla and zygoma and orbit, इसका मतलब कि सिर्फ sinuses में collection है, right? थोड़े बहुत nasal turbinates and all involved है. So क्या करेंगे हम लोग? secretions को हम drain कर देंगे, mucosa जो है उसको निकाल देंगे, turbinates को निकाल देंगे, but we are not going to do any too much of the surgery. So endoscopic sinus surgery debridement, अगर सिर्फ nasal sinus involvement है without any bone erosion of the maxilla or zygoma or the orbital floor, but if there is maxilla involvement, you have to remove that part. So maxillectomy, either partial or total. If there is zygoma involvement, you have to debride the zygoma. If it is minimal, you have to remove that part, whatever is involved, right? So maxillectomy with zygoma debridement. If orbit is also involved, then you have to do maxillectomy with zygoma debridement with debridement of orbital floor, walls, localized debridement of the necrotic tissue in early localized orbital disease. So suppose that only medial rectus muscle is involved, but optic nerve is normal. That means if vision is normal, we will always try to save the vision. That is what the current guidelines say, right? But many surgeons, they don't prefer to do that also because this disease is so bad, right? So this disease doesn't give you a second chance. But for theory purpose, just remember that you are not going to remove the eye if the vision is okay, right? So you will just debride the necrotic part and treat the rest of the part with amphotericin B. So debride the orbital floor, walls, whichever is involved. Localized debridement of the necrotic tissue in early localized orbital disease. If only some muscles are involved, you can debride them with the micro debrider. So there is an instrument called micro debrider by which you will remove that necrotic part with the help of endoscope. Exenteration of the eye only in some particular cases, when there is vision loss, when there is total ophthalmoplegia due to mucor, when there is chemosis, when there is necrosis of the orbital tissue, right? So loss of vision is not always an indication of exenteration, but in particular cases where you will see you have to save the life, the involvement is extensive, vision loss is there, you will have to remove the eye. So if there is vision loss, total ophthalmoplegia, chemosis, necrosis of the orbital tissue, you have to exenterate the eye. If frontal bone and skull base is involved, if only anterior table is involved, you will debride. If posterior table is involved, you will do the cranialization. That means you will remove the frontal part and you will do the cranialization. Posterior table also you will remove. Debridement of whatever osteomyelitic skull bone and the cerebral parenchyma safely, whatever is involved. Right now, this was the most important things that you have known by this time. Only some few normal and generalized things that are left is how you are going to prevent and what is the SOP for the humidifier. So you will be hearing lot of news that this mucor is not due to steroid. Why? Because steroid was being used for so long in so many diseases like rheumatoid arthritis and many other autoimmune diseases, even in high doses for long, but nobody was getting this mucor. Pehle mucor to itna nahi hota tha. We were doing it like in my 3 years of MS tenure, I have seen 2 cases of mucor. I have done 2 orbital exenterations. So इतने cases नहीं थे जैसे अभी गुजरात में 500 cases हैं. तो इसका क्या कारण है? So one of the reason that people are speculating is use of industrial oxygen or use of the means not proper cleaning of the humidifier. So what you should do, always use distilled or sterile water. So these one question you can expect from this table also. So use of distilled or sterile water, never use unboiled tap water or mineral water. Fill up to about 10 mm below the maximum fill line. Do not let the water level pass below the maximum fill line. Water level should be checked twice and topped up when required. Water in humidifier should be changed regularly, daily. Humidifier should be washed in mild soapy water, rinsed with clean water and dried in air before reuse. Once in a week for the same patient, and in between patient, all the components of the humidifier should be soaked in mild antiseptic solution for 30 minutes, rinsed with clean water and dried in air. So I don't know how people are going to do this, but these are really important, which I think might make some difference in reducing the number of mucormycosis. Prevention is the best thing that we all know in current time. So in current time of pandemic, we all know when we don't have much of the treatments option, the prevention is something which we should give emphasis on, right? So environmental cleanliness, that means no exposure to decaying organic materials like breads, fruit, vegetables, soil, compost, excreta. Control hypoglycemia, very important. Glucose monitoring in COVID-19 requiring steroid therapy. So basically those patients with steroid therapy, you have to monitor glucose, maintain it with insulin. That means control the hyperglycemia. Optimal use of steroids. So people say there is a right time to start and a right dose to start for the steroid. Right timing of initiation, right dose, and for right duration. So right time, right dose, right duration. This is again one question for the REIMS. For steroid, all the 3 criteria should be met in COVID-19. Right time, right dose, right duration. Don't start it too early, don't start it too late, at the right time. Don't start it with too high dose. Don't give it for too long. Use distilled water for humidifier. Use antifungal and antibiotic only and only when indicated. Do not consider all cases with blocked nose and symptoms as bacterial sinusitis, particularly if they are post-COVID patient and immunocompromised or COVID patients on steroid. Simple tests like pupillary reaction, ocular motility, sinus tenderness, palatal examination should be included in normal and routine examinations for all the COVID-19 patients. So this is very important, or this has become now very important, to screen and early diagnose patients of mucormycosis in COVID-19 recovered patients or COVID-19 patients. So there are two subsets of patients in COVID-19 that are getting COVID and that are getting mucormycosis. One which are still COVID positive, and one who have recovered from COVID-19 and then got this mucormycosis, right? So this was a very brief description of the mucormycosis which the AIIMS Rishikesh has given, and I thought it is important for you to know this because a lot more questions they can ask from this topic, because this is so much relevant in present scenario. So with this I will end this video. Do subscribe if you haven't. I'll try to help you all maximum as much as possible for me with the time and duties I do, and share it with your friends. So I hope you are doing good in this pandemic. Don't lose hope. I think this AIIMS has given you one push, because the NEET PG was getting delayed. You all are already, the situation is so uncertain and everybody is so uncertain and lazy with things, right? So this AIIMS has given you a push and a reminder that you should keep reading, right? Don't stop, keep reading, keep doing little extra every day, and finally things will be aligned with time, right? So times are uncertain, but I would pray and suggest you to be healthy, to keep yourself and your family healthy and happy, and play safe, right? Bye bye, tata, and take care. This is Dr. Shivam. We'll meet you soon. And if you face any doubts or difficulties, you can join the Telegram group, WhatsApp group. I'll post the link below, and do let me know how this session helped you so that I can make more of these, right?